All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Town Hall. First off, happy St. Patty's Day. We appreciate you taking the night to come here to the council meeting instead of being out there celebrating. But we are here for a budget work session. We're going to hear tonight from the school department regarding their fiscal year 26-27 school budget. But first order of business, as always, is pledge of allegiance to the flag.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next on the agenda is the land acknowledgement statement. The town of South Kingstown pays homage to the indigenous people and land on which the town is now located. Let this acknowledgement serve as a reminder of our ongoing efforts to recognize, honor, reconcile, and partner with the Narragansett tribe whose land and water we benefit from today.
Before we get started, for anybody who regrets having to spend St. Patrick's night here, there's soda bread in the conference room for anybody that wants it. And I told Mr. Manny I wasn't happy about having to be here for this night instead of last night. Wearing the green tie is not a sufficient thing, but your offer to come up and sing Danny Boy, I'm here. At the end of the meeting?
I'm pretty sure Jim's looking forward to Thursday, St. Joseph's Day, to celebrate his
You're gonna bring the
Italian-American
Zeppelis, right?
heritage. Where are the Zeppelis?
Yeah,
Sold.
bring them, Deb.
All right, we're now going to dive right into it. I'm going to hand it over to the school superintendent, Pedraza, to give us a presentation.
Good evening. Thank you. I would like to begin by expressing my gratitude to Council President McEntee and all the honorable members of the South Kingstown Town Council for your leadership, your dedication to this community, and the time you invest in this budget process. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank Town Manager Manny for his continued leadership and collaboration with the schools. To School Committee Chair Vetter and the honorable members of the school committee, thank you for your unwavering commitment to the students, families, and staff of this district. Your guidance and oversight makes us better. A special thank you to our principals, directors, and administrators who are here this evening. Every day, you lead with purpose and give everything you have to the children who are in your care, and I am proud to serve alongside of you. To our dedicated faculty and staff, the teachers, paraeducators, custodians, and support professionals who are also here this evening, you are the heart of this district, and we thank you. What you do matters more than any budget document can capture. And to the valued community members of South Kingstown joining us this evening, your presence reflects the partnership that is the very core of who we are. Our mission states it simply and powerfully. In partnership with the community, our students will thrive. And tonight, I'm honored to present the South Kingstown School District's fiscal year 27 proposed budget. The budget built on our belief that students thrive through trust, high expectations, respect, inclusion, voice, and equity. Next slide, please. So to be transparent from the very get-go and the start of this presentation, accordingly, here is our bottom line up front for FY27. The good news, and it genuinely is good news, is that this budget keeps every current program, activity, and extracurricular in place for the 26-27 school year. Not a single student program is being eliminated. We are serving 2,465 total students with 2,175 enrolled in district schools this year. The staffing reductions we made in preparation for next year have already been accounted for in our request. At the same time, we need to be upfront with what we are navigating. A recommendation to once again level fund the schools, holding the municipal appropriation at the same figure established at the 2020-21 school year. An unanticipated loss of approximately $400,000 in state aid driven by changes to the governor's budget and our community's assessed wealth. A local transfer from FY26 of approximately $600,000 that does not recur in FY27. employee benefit costs that are projected to increase well over $1.5 million, driven largely by health insurance premium increase that no district can control, and major purchase services and collective bargaining contracts that remain in progress, adding some uncertainty to the final figures. These compounding pressures mean that we are proposing to use $1 million from the district's fund balance to bridge the operational costs. And again, to be direct, the use of these reserves places the capital improvement projects discussed in January with these two bodies in jeopardy. We will address that trade-off later in this presentation. Next slide, please. With a recommended level funding of schools at $55,994,773, the same appropriation level established in the 2021 school year would make the 6th consecutive year that local funding has remained flat. I respect the difficulty, choices the town faces, and have deep appreciation for the complexity of municipal finance. But I also have an obligation as superintendent to show you clearly what level funding means in practice, because the world our students live in today is not the world of 2021. Again, and that does not even include the litany of unfunded mandates that these costs also apply to. This slide captures exactly the gap using national percentage ranges. Since 2020, every single major cost category in public education has increased significantly, and the local appropriation has not moved. Given this district's years of cuts, program eliminations, closing of multiple schools, and now with the district exceeding previous year's enrollment projections, level funding is not a neutral act. When costs rise 18 to 26% and funding stays flat, that gap must be filled somewhere through staff reductions, program cuts, or reserve spending. The school department has done all three and more over the past several years. What the school committee is asking tonight is for this council to consider what it truly costs to maintain the quality education this community expects and close some of that 5-year gap. Next slide, please. Here are the same numbers but placed into a different context. Again, using the same category that every district must address regardless of what's happening with enrollment, this slide looks to demonstrate how far a dollar in 2020 would now go in 2026. Again, while these are national averages, these are not just numbers on a spreadsheet. They represent the choices that we are forced to make when funding is held flat while costs rise. Every year, we absorb these increases without additional local funding. We reduce positions, delay repairs, spend down reserves. This budget asks the council to partner with us in closing that gap, not entirely, not all at once, but meaningfully. Our district core values, as expressed through Thrive and represent the trust, high expectations, respect, inclusion, voice, and equity, are not aspirations. They require resources. Level funding year after year makes growing, supporting, and honoring these beliefs through education, through the education received in South Kingstown, harder and harder to achieve. Next slide, please. With the bottom line up front complete, the next portion of our presentation this evening is organized around the 4 key areas that tell the complete story of where we are currently and where we are headed: our priorities and goals, our enrollment, our staffing, and our fund balance. And each area connects directly to the FY27 budget request. In terms of priorities and goals, our FY27 budget is directly aligned with the findings of last year's equity audit and the newly adopted district mission and core beliefs. This is not a budget built in isolation. It reflects who we say we are and what we believe students deserve. With enrollment, we'll walk through enrollment data for students across all pre-K through 12 grade bands, because enrollment drives both our state aid and our staffing requirements, but most importantly, properly center students at the forefront of all we do today. Staffing, we will present historical, current, and projected staffing data included by the reductions we have already made in good faith. And with fund balance, we will be transparent about our reserves, what is available, and the trade-offs involved of using them for operations. Next slide, please. As we created FY27 and as we continue to do, as FY27 evolves, we will always look to connect back to our 4 school committee approved priorities. Priorities that are deeply rooted in our Thrive mission and reinforced, again, through the equity audit. With priority 1 being high expectations and equity to increase proficiency rates and eliminate achievement gaps. These are not just words, these are initiatives that are in place already, from a gap closure coach this school year to expand research-based instructional strategies in all disciplines, not just math and ELA, to our adjusted universal screen benchmarks that reflect Rhode Island's high standards with a 50% versus 40% cut score so that more students are sure to get the support they need as early as possible. With priority 2 in trust and respect, where we build and maintain trust and demonstrate respect across all stakeholders, especially students. Already this school year, we've reorganized disciplinary procedures and handbooks. We've applied for and received Ride Healthy Schools grants, and we've received professional development and restorative practices. With priority 3, inclusive practice, our district believes in inclusion, not as a policy, but as a practice. And we want to strengthen and expand opportunities while also making sure we are not over-identifying students for special education. Initiatives so far this year include professional development from the Rhode Island Autism Project, the reestablishment of local special education advisory committees, and professional development and facilitated IEP process through the Department of Education. And last, but certainly not least, student and family voice is priority 4, because voice matters. If it didn't, we would not have a budget process like this evening and the future dates to further hear from the community. This budget ensures that we continue building the structures that honor our students' and families' perspectives, with initiatives continuing that were established this year. As Assistant Superintendent Seeger and myself attended all open houses and had open forums with families in the community, where our principals have established advisory committees, new student councils, and hosted Title I open house nights. And additionally, how the district continues to reach out to families through end of quarter 1 surveys and calendars for their input. Next slide, please. Enrollment. So again, these are the students who are in our district school seats. Our projected enrollment using students who are currently in district this school year shows us a total next year of 2,160 in-district students across pre-K through 12, compared to this year's 2,175. However, there are a few important notes for context. Next year's students, which you'll see highlighted in the, we'll call that Keeney blue, our pre-K and kindergarten projections are drawn from NESDEC, the New England School Development Council, because again, these are theoretical. They do not need to, they are not with us here yet, and their enrollment is based on their age and some degree of parental choice. So these are not students who are currently with us. Some may be, however, not all. All other grade projections represent active students as of February 4th of this year. I've marked grades 6 and 9 with an asterisk because these figures do not include students who have historically returned from local charter schools at those transition points. We anticipate approximately 18 returning students from grade 12, 18 students, 12 from grade 5 and 6 from grade 8. If that happens, that brings our total projected enrollment closer or to 2,178. I need to be clear, at the elementary level, we do not have the ability to collapse sections because class sizes are at an appropriate level. However, there is one section contraction at that level due to a rising cohort. And then what I do want to be transparent about is also that depending on the realized kindergarten enrollment, this section that we were able to collapse already may need to be reestablished. If we do get 154 kindergartners enrolled, we'll have to add another section of kindergarten. If we do not, we then need to contractually move other staff to solely be placed in kindergarten classrooms and not service all grade levels. They must be solely embedded there. So this projection is encouraging news. These numbers are a meaningful signal that our efforts to strengthen programs and build community trust are working. However, with any projection, a word of caution. These enrollment numbers are a projection estimate, one that's open to a variety of factors that we cannot rely on NESDEC alone. Again, this time last year, NESDEC predicted that our pre-K through 12 enrollment was going to be 2,144. And as you can see in this total, the current school year, we are exceeding that estimate by 31 students. We cannot forecast each and every condition that may promote or discourage enrollment in our district. But if we start with those who are here with us now, we ensure that we have met what I believe is the moral obligation to the current students of South Kingstown and their needs next year. Next slide, please. Enrollment Part 2, South Kingstown School District total students. So this slide shows the complete enrollment picture for South Kingstown. Our total enrollment and fiscal obligation stands at 2,465 students. But that number tells a much more complex story than it might appear. Again, the 2,164 students are enrolled in South Kingstown schools as residents. We have 11 students who are tuitioned in from surrounding communities. We have 134 students attend out-of-district charter school. 89 students attend career and tech education programs outside of South Kingstown. 14 students who choose to attend a state school. 15 students who are in out-of-district special education placements. 25 students who receive special ed services while enrolled in private schools. 8 students who are in transition programs as they look to the age of 22, and 5 students are enrolled in GED programs. Again, each and every one we have a financial obligation to. Again, South Kingstown is unique for a variety of reasons, but again, in terms of this total slide, among communities in Washington, Kent, Newport, and Bristol counties, we are a true outlier. We are the only town in this region with more than one charter school located within our boundaries, and two charter schools and a state school satellite campus that now operate in South Kingstown. That choice landscape creates real fiscal complexity that we will address later in this presentation. Next slide, please. Good stewardship of public dollars means ensuring that our staffing reflects our enrollment. And this slide shows 3 years of staffing data, and I'm proud to report that we have consistently right-sized our workforce in a responsible way. This is fiscal discipline. We have reduced our instructional staff from 217 in 23-24 to 202 this year. No ESSER-funded positions remain. We have fully absorbed or eliminated those pandemic-era roles. We have made these reductions without eliminating a single student program over the past 3 years. These reductions reflect our commitment to be responsible stewards of the community's investment. Our belief in high expectation extends to how we manage resources. We hold ourselves accountable to the same high standards that we set for students. I'm happy to give a breakdown of the specific positions that are included in each category if they're needed. I did, however, go through those in our July presentation, and I'm happy to do so again if members of the committee need me to read what positions make up each category, if necessary. If not, I'll continue to move on.
You can continue.
Next slide, please. In addition to this 15 position reduction made this school year, this budget includes further staffing reductions totaling $613,052 in savings. We have 4 retirement replacements generating salary breakage savings of $138,362. What this means by breakage is when a senior teacher at the top salary schedule retires and is replaced by a newer teacher at a lower step, the district realizes savings on the same position. A word here is that what we did not do is we did not take every single position and put it at the first step. Given the nationwide teacher shortages, given the specific positions that sometimes require either a higher degree or years of experience, what we did is we did a fifth step average for those positions. So again, if we could come out on a different side at the end of the hiring cycle, but again, we don't want to be too optimistic in terms of what our potential savings could be given the labor market that is. There are also 4 positions eliminated or reduced through section attrition and position eliminations that save $447,178 in salary and benefits. Section attrition occurs when lower enrollment and rising cohorts mean fewer sections are needed at a grade level or in a department. And we have 1 position reclassification generating $27,512 in salary breakage savings. So again, the total FY27 reduction in staffing already is $613,052. And this is not a painless process. These are real positions, real people, and they reflect our obligation to align staffing with student need while being responsible for the dollars that you entrust in us. Next slide, please. So a breakdown of just salaries and benefits, because ultimately together these represent approximately 68% of our total proposed budget, and this shows why those costs rise even as we reduce positions. Total salaries are projected to be in the around $31.2 million in FY27, and note that despite the staffing reductions, the per position salary cost increases due to contractual step increases and bargaining agreements. The total medical and other benefits are projected in this at $15,494,290, an increase of more than $1.4 million over FY26. The primary driver of this is medical insurance, projected at $5.8 million. Reflecting the 10% increase urged by our healthcare provider, the Trust. The retiree medical costs are also increasing to $7,596.00. Other benefits, including pension contributions set by the state, workers' compensation, unemployment, and liability insurance, in this initial presentation total $8.8 million. I do have, though, an unfortunate update. At the time of this budget's creation, the Trust had urged that we use 10% for medical insurance. Unfortunately, on Friday, we, like the town, received new guidance stating that healthcare will actually go up 12.7%, and dental, originally urged to be budgeted at 5%, should now be budgeted at 8.6%. Using these figures, we incur an additional total cost for those benefits, a total of $15,938,747. Again, $15,938,747. So while this is disappointing news and out of our locus of control, what is in our locus of control and what we are fortunate to have is our employees. They are our greatest asset next to our students. They are the educators who build trust with our students every day, who hold those high expectations in every classroom, who make inclusion a living practice, and investing in their well-being is an investment in our students. Next slide, please. Fund balance. The district's fund balance starting this school year stood at $4,714,993. During this school year, however, we allocated $1.1 million committed to this year's school capital improvement projects, or CIP. The $581,057 is also held in encumbrances associated with both past projects as well as making up the gap from FY26 shortfalls that we had in capital maintenance last school year. That leaves 2.9 available for FY27. This budget proposes using 1 million of that amount to support operations, leaving a projected remaining balance of $1.9 million. As you are aware in our conversations in January, using fund balance for operations directly impacts our ability to fund the capital improvement projects we presented. As we noted during those presentations, CIP project completion depends on supplemental funding from the fund balance. With 1 million redirected to operations, those projects are most likely not possible within this budget cycle. It also, more concerningly, creates a structural deficit and removes resources that the district can use in current and future negotiations. There is a path forward, however. If fiscal conditions change through additional state aid, contract settlements more favorable than projected, or enrollment-related savings, we would be able to shift dollars back to the CIP if we're not using them for operations. And we are committed to the transparency about that trade-off in every step. Additionally, if all of this year's capital improvement projects were to qualify for the 35% reimbursement from the state as discussed in January, we could receive approximately $400,000 to be placed in a restricted capital improvement fund, though those dollars are not reflected in any of the figures on this page. I've created a difference in the next slide, but similar scenarios are contemplated in the next slide. But committing to this plan will also help the district work to secure funding to achieve the necessary fixes in really what our capital improvement plan boils down to is HVAC units and roofs for our schools, ensuring that each and every building is warm, safe, and dry. Next slide, please. So here we have a few scenarios. In scenario CIP number 1 is that we still use $1 million for operations, or if we still need to do that, and then are directed or need to spend another CIP on $1 million on CIP projects. Even if we were to get the restricted reimbursement or 35% on that $1 million, at the end of year 1, our unrestricted fund would be less than $1 million, with restricted being $350,000. This would make our investment this year in operations impossible the next fiscal year. However, if we play this out and fiscal conditions were such that we did not in year 2 need to use $1 million for operations, but continued to spend $1 million on the CIP, again, with year 2 reimbursement coming in, again, with another $350,000, the end of that school year, we would see an unrestricted fund balance of $341,721 with a restricted of $350,000. If you add on, though, that we need to continue to use unrestricted fund balance for operations, year 2 is not possible. We're in a deficit. If we then say, well, we're not going to get additional funding, continue to use fund balance for operations, so if you want to use $1 million, you can now use $2 million. If we were to do that for year 1 in this scenario, again, no reimbursement because there's no state aid coming in. Our ending fund balance would then be $991,721. Again, placing that into, even if we recouped what we are now, we would be spending $2 million out of fund balance. If we recouped $1 million of that in year 2, we wouldn't have enough funds to submit another $1 million because we are not legally allowed to run a deficit in the state of Rhode Island. So again, this slide was created to show various scenarios. We're using fund balance for both operations and CIP projects. Even if the district were to receive housing aid reimbursements in a restricted capital fund, quickly depletes fund balance and places the district into or close to a deficit. Again, something school districts in Rhode Island legally cannot be in. And next slide. Some might say challenges. Isn't that what you just went through? Well, we have some others. So as we continue through the next portion of this budget presentation, I want to walk you through the 4 major challenges that shape this budget. They are not problems of our makings, but they are ours to navigate together. Challenge 1 is a reduction in state aid. The governor's FY27 budget recommendation includes a significant and unanticipated reduction to state aid to South Kingstown, with a net decrease of $398,550. This is driven primarily by a reduction in high-cost special education aid, and we will detail this further in a moment. Challenge 2 is our community's wealth. Rhode Island's school funding formula considers each community's ability to pay based on property values and resident income. South Kingstown's assessed wealth has increased in FY27, which sounds like good news. But when using the funding formula, it means the state reduces its share of our budget. We are penalized in a sense for being a relatively prosperous community, even as our actual costs continue to rise. Challenge 3 is school choice. South Kingstown, again, is the only community in Washington, Kent, Newport, and Bristol counties with more than one charter school operating within its boundaries. This creates a fiscal dynamic unlike any other town in our region. We pay tuition for every student who attends a charter, CTE, or state school, and we must absorb these costs while still maintaining the full, robust programming our in-district students deserve. And challenge 4, we have contractual obligations. We currently have one employment contract and 2 major purchase services contracts in negotiations or expiring, and those contracts must, or until those are resolved, there is uncertainty in some of our cost projections. Next slide. So again, this is a simplified state aid calculation. It does not go into average daily membership. It does not go into, which success factors are included. Again, this is a very simplified version. But to understand our state aid reduction, it helps to understand the basics, and that's what this attempts to do. Without getting too into the weeds with things such as average daily membership, aid basically comes down to 3 factors. Student counts and need, which the state refers to as the foundation. Every student, whether enrolled in our schools, a charter school, a CTE program, or a state school, generates a foundational amount. In FY27, the state has set that foundational amount at $13,859 per student. Students with higher needs, those in poverty, English learners, and students with disabilities generate additional funding above that base amount. Community wealth, or the state share. The state then calculates how much your community can afford to contribute based on property values and resident income. Communities with greater wealth receive a lower state share percentage. They are expected to fund more locally. In FY27, South Kingstown is ranked 7th in the state in community wealth, with a state share rate of 14.5%, and this is down from last year of 15.1%. So again, the reduction on top of reductions. That decrease in state share directly reduces our aid. In FY27, only Jamestown, Little Compton, New Shoreham, Portsmouth, Charlestown, and Narragansett have a lower state share ratio than South Kingstown. The simplified calculation, state aid equals total foundation amount times state share percentage. The remainder must be found, or the remainder must be funded locally. When our enrollment declines, as we've seen over years, our foundation amount shrinks. When our community wealth increases, our state share percentage decreases. Both forces have been working against South Kingstown in various state aid determinations. Next slide, please. Here we'll go into this year's reduction of state aid in the governor's proposed budget. And these numbers tell a striking story. South Kingstown's total state aid is projected at $5,359,259 for FY27, a decrease of $398,550, or 6.92%. This is not factoring in categorical funds. This is the largest percentage decrease of any district in the state of Rhode Island. To put that into perspective, South Kingstown has the fourth largest total dollar reduction in state aid in Rhode Island, behind only Providence, Central Falls, and Woonsocket. Those are urban districts with very different demographic and fiscal profiles. That we rank alongside them in the magnitude of our aid reduction illustrates just how significant the state funding formula is working against this community next school year. The breakdown, our formula aid actually decreases by $96,790. However, our high-cost special education aid drops dramatically from $534,993 to $233,026, a total reduction of $1,967. In our categorical funds, non-public transport, MLL, and the new student success factor total $155,006. And a reminder that the non-public transport is a credit towards future bills. It is not dollars that can be applied across transportation lines. It is a restricted fund. This is not a small adjustment for us. It represents real money that the district is currently using and that we need. We will continue to work with our state legislatures and RIDE to advocate for a funding formula that more fairly reflects the costs of delivering the quality education in a community like South Kingstown. But let me be clear, we cannot wait for a solution that might never materialize to come from a state or a board that is put together to make recommendations. Next slide, please. The impact of school choice in South Kingstown. School choice is an option available to families, and we respect families' right to choose. But that choice has a cost that deserves transparency. Assuming level enrollment from this year to next year, 242 students from South Kingstown will attend schools outside of our district, 136 at charter, 92 at CTE, and 14 at state schools. Again, using projected numbers from this fiscal year, that puts us at 5,132,576. This number, when RIDE puts out their new numbers for FY27, is almost guaranteed to go up. But we don't have those numbers yet. The critical context, again, all projected formula aid from FY27, which again approximates somewhere in $5.1 million when we don't account for transportation, will flow entirely to districts or entities outside of South Kingstown School Department. Every dollar the state sends us in formula aid at the $13,000 level is being redirected to other schools serving our students at the South Kingstown rate. This means our entire local appropriation, the property tax dollars you all contribute, must fund in-district operations. And we are committed to doing that and have been doing that responsibly. And we believe that the path forward lies in demonstrating the quality and the value of our district programs so that families increasingly choose to remain or return back to South Kingstown. Our enrollment data suggests that, again, this strategy is beginning to work. Next slide, please. Contractual obligations. Again, some uncertainty as we, again, are pending resolution for FY27. We are entering into contract negotiations with SKESP, the South Kingstown Education Support Professionals, our second largest bargaining unit. Our budget for FY27 assumptions include a 2% increase for SKESP, but until negotiations conclude, again, that final figure remains uncertain. We are committed to fair, good faith negotiations that respect the contributions of our paraeducators and support staff while honoring fiscal responsibility to the community and our taxpayers. The purchase services contracts, two major service contracts expire this year: our student transportation contract with Ocean State and our food service contract with Chartwells. Transportation is particularly significant. South Kingstown is the second largest municipality by landmass in Rhode Island, and our geography requires unique and extensive transportation networks. We are anticipating an 11% increase in our transportation costs in FY27 as the market has shifted dramatically since our last contract cycle. We will pursue the most competitive renewal possible, but the cost increase is real and largely unavoidable, especially after consulting with my colleagues around the state and what they are seeing in their renegotiations. Next slide, please. So the assumptions that this budget is built on: again, state and federal aid is based on the governor's recommended FY27 budget dated January 16th. We are assuming federal aid is going to be level funded, and that is optimistic. We have not assumed any restoration of state aid above the governor's recommendation, though again, we will continue to advocate. Our employment contracts are salary assumptions or obligations in some cases, as these are contractual obligations: 2.5 for teachers, 2% for paraeducators, 2% for Council 94, our custodians, and 2% for administrative non-union staff. Again, these are good faith projections. Final figures will depend on the outcome of negotiations currently in progress. With health and benefits, as noted earlier, these assumptions do need to be adjusted moving forward. For continuity's sake, for tonight's presentation, I will continue with the prior assumptions and guidance, which again, we did 10% on health care for both active members and retirees, and then did 5% across all other benefits, including dental, retirement. However, again, those have shifted. In terms of other assumptions, all other FY27 expenditure figures represent the requests from the budget owners who are here this evening to our Chief Financial Officer, and they've been built from the ground up, school by school and department by department. And this budget does not include the additional local transfer we received and that we were grateful for in FY26, as the council and committee are aware that the $600,000 transfer was a one-time resource that does not carry into FY27's maintenance of effort. Next slide, please. And now I am pleased to turn over the next two slides in terms of our overall revenue and expenditures to our CFO, Mrs. Patricia Proctor.
Thank you so much. This slide shows our full revenue picture over 4 years. Let me walk you through these key changes from fiscal 27 to fiscal year 26 to 27. Town appropriation, $58,494,773, an increase of $2.5 million, or approximately 4.5% over the fiscal year 26 appropriation of $55,994,773. State aid, $5,359,259, a decrease of $398,550 from fiscal year 26. State federal grants, $1,777,790, a modest decrease from fiscal year 26, representing the current funding trends. ESSA Opera funds zero. Those federal pandemic resources are fully exhausted. School lunch revenue state aid, $830,000, an increase of $90,000 over fiscal 26, reflecting anticipated higher a la carte sales. Other local revenue, $1,059,000, including Medicaid reimbursements, $525,000, tuition income of $200,000, and miscellaneous revenue, $234,000 from facility rentals, investment earnings, and the school trust fund appropriations. Use of fund balance, $1 million, as discussed, drawn from our reserves. Total fiscal 27 revenues,
$68,520,822. We are asking the town for $2.5 million more than last year. At the same time, the state is sending us $400,000 less in state aid, and the fiscal year 26 local appropriation of $600,000 does not reoccur through maintenance of effort. That gap of $3.5 million of new pressure that reflects forces largely outside of our control. Next slide, please. Expenditures. Total fiscal year 27 expenditures, $68,520,822. Reminder, these are based off our submitted fiscal 27 request, which is not reflective of the most recent communication from the trust received Friday evening. Additionally, I want to address why the data represented in slide 11 for salaries and benefits is different than what you see here. In an attempt to show all of our expenses and revenues, we included grant-funded positions in our totals, even when they come from restricted sources. After conversations with Mr. Sylvia, we know that these figures are not utilized by the town and not put into ClearGov platform. As such, moving forward, we are prepared to have future presentations focus only on revenue expenditures involving state, local sources only. Salaries, $31,230,435, a decrease from $32,242,738 in fiscal year 26, reflecting our staffing reductions despite contractual increases per remaining position. Benefits, $15,494,290, with increases driven by anticipated premium increases across all benefit categories. Professional technical services, $2,415,587, a modest increase due to inflationary pressures. Purchase property services, $905,411, a slight decrease reflecting improved building maintenance practices. Other purchase services, $15,078,603, a significant increase driven primarily by out-of-district tuition, charter school payments, transportation, and CTE costs. These costs are largely non-discretionary. Supplies and materials, $1,833,698, a decrease partly driven by HVAC control. I'm sorry. Increase, I'm so sorry. Property capital expenditures, $1,479,042, an increase reflecting inflationary pressures and placement of proposed fund balance towards operating expenses. Miscellaneous, $83,756, reflecting professional organization and licensing fees.
Next slide, please. Thank you, Mrs. Proctor. So, in summary, we're facing about a $4 million shortfall. And so the driving forces in this budget, an unanticipated loss of state aid of approximately $400,000. The structure of last year's local fund transfer is approximately $600,000, equaling, that's $1 million right there. Contractual salary and benefit increases, approximately $1.5 million in new costs. There's $2.5 million. Anticipated purchase service cost increase in transportation, tuition, and other contracts. These four factors create a structural gap of approximately $4 million that this budget must address. The FY27 request is addressing it by first making sure no student programs or activities are eliminated, that we are requesting the increase in the town appropriation of approximately $2.5 million. We are implementing personnel reductions of $613,000. Again, that's conservative at this time. And we are using $1 million from the district fund balance for operations. Again, the trade-off is clear. Using fund balance for operations means the capital improvement projects discussed in January are most likely not possible within this budget. However, we remain committed to revisiting that decision if fiscal conditions change, and we will shift dollars back to the capital improvement if we can achieve savings through contract negotiations, improved state aid, or additional salary breakage as we progress through the retirement hiring cycle. This is a budget built on the fiscal principles that guide for everything we do fiscally, and that we alluded to beginning last year in our priorities of stability. We're protecting every program our students depend on. Stewardship, we're making difficult personnel reductions when necessary. Responsiveness, we're adapting to forces that are outside of our control. And again, partnership, bringing this honestly and transparently to you who are our partners in this work. I also want to be direct about the level funding recommendation. The town manager has recommended holding that appropriation, again, now 5 years, established 5 years ago. Again, we respect that recommendation and understand the fiscal constraints that inform it. But we ask this council to weigh it against everything you have seen tonight. 5 years of inflation that have eroded the purchasing power of flat funding, a $400,000 loss in state aid, and the expiration of major contracts whose costs have risen dramatically. The school committee's request of $58,494,773, a $2.5 million increase, is not an extravagance. It is the minimum necessary to protect programs, honor contracts, and keep the faith with the students and families of South Kingstown. Next slide, please. In closing, I'll return to where we began. Our mission is simple and it is true. In partnership with the community, our students will thrive. Every line in this budget, every dollar we are asking the town to appropriate exists in service to that mission. It exists so that every child in South Kingstown can experience trust in their school community, high expectations from their teachers, respect in their hallways, inclusion in every classroom, a voice that is heard, and equity in every opportunity that we provide. The challenges we face this year are real. The state aid reduction is real. The unknowns at the federal level are real. The costs associated with school choice and transportation for a district this size are real. The inflationary cost pressures are real. The years of responding to level funding are real. But so is the commitment of every principal, director, administrator, teacher, and staff member in this district. And so is the confidence of a community that just a few years ago voted to invest $150 million in the future of education in South Kingstown through our new high school and athletic fields. Again, we are grateful for the partnership of this council, this committee, and this community. And we are committed to being worthy of that trust. To Council President McEntee, Town Manager Manny, Chair Vetter, members of the Town Council and School Committee, we thank you for your time, your service, and your attention to this presentation. My team and I are happy to answer any questions you may have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Any questions from council members? I have a few. I could just get it going. Or if you want to jump in, go ahead.
I'm sure I'll have others, but in the fall, the town council forwarded a resolution advocating for changes in the school funding formula to the General Assembly. Were you able to do the same? You did? I don't recall it coming to us. That's why I asked.
So we sent one last year, and then we thought it prudent to send it again. So
Okay.
at our 2 meetings ago, we approved doing that, and it's been sent to all our delegation, all other school committees through REASC, and so we were asking for other school committees to support it as well. This is specifically to put transportation.
Exactly. That's what
Yes.
ours was, and ours we did.
We did the same one you did. We started with yours.
Right, but we sent ours in the fall, so they would get it in January. So if you're just sending it now on
We
March.
sent it last year, and then we resent it again.
Okay, perfect. Because I believe that some of the discrepancies are that we experience as a community are quite painful related to transportation, and that it's a lot of money. It's not like 1 square mile. We have 28 square miles, I think. So that's my first question. My second question, can I just keep going, or do you want to alternate? I had two questions from the community, so they're not mine, but so I'm just going to look at my phone. They had a question about Broad Rock school administrators. They asked, hold on, why there are 3 at Broad Rock and 2 at the high school. I don't know. Is that accurate? Can someone ask why Broad Rock needs 3 admin while the high school has more kids and only 2 admin?
I would say that, again, those are existing contractual obligations and structures, and that this district has gone through a plethora of administrative changes requiring that different school administrators serve in different capacities at different buildings at different times. And that, again, as we go through our enrollment and right-sizing staffing, as well as responding to the district's needs, those are evaluated as well. But currently, that is true. However, also at the high school, we are fortunate to have also a dean, as well as Terry Lynch as athletic director, who works out and is also a certified administrator.
Okay. The next question they have is, has anyone looked into the difference in cost and teachers needed from running a block schedule, which the high school has now, to a 7-period schedule, which they had prior, and what would be the savings? These are not my questions. I just want to put them out there.
So we could, however, structure of school schedules is collectively bargained, and there is current language, and we are in year 2 of that collective bargaining agreement. That bargaining agreement with teachers expires next year and can be revisited.
So I guess I will just ask follow-up. If it were to change from block to seven periods, I think that's what I used to know it as, is there a savings?
It depends on what you're filling those 7 periods with. So you could,
Okay.
I mean, so again, if you had 7 periods and came to a collective bargaining agreement where, 6 are taught and 1 is a planning period, that's going to look very different than if 5 were taught, 1 is a duty, and 2 are planning. So again, in terms of what, it's in the details, and again.
Okay. I think I'm going to defer for a while because I want to go and then I want to take them all up. But I'll be back. Thank you.
So, listening to you tonight, it's clear that there's a lot of a lot of factors that are going into this. One of the things that I'd like to sort of ask about is on the revenue side here, I see that under private donations, that total is 0. And I wonder, is there, any thought towards that, accepting donations? Is there a policy or what?
Actually, just this fall, we rewrote our fundraising and donations policy in order to make it easier, both at the school level and at the district level, in order to solicit and receive both restricted donations as well as unrestricted donations. So our policy has been updated to reflect that reality that we can, and if anybody is interested in making donations outside of their tax contributions, we do have policy that can enable that to happen, as well as bookkeeping protocols to put that in. But again, it's not something that we can count on, and it's not an endeavor that we've undertaken.
So I asked that simply because I had the opportunity to visit the Compass School, which, as you know, is one of our charter schools. And I was astonished to visit their campus. It's quite impressive. And while I was there, I heard about a $1 million donation or fundraising efforts that they had undertaken to sort of put in this beautiful water tower. And, it's a really impressive situation. And I noticed in looking at their budget that they have about $500,000 a year in charitable donations. And so I'm bringing this to your attention, not in a way to say that I expect there to be this full-grown, full-on fundraising operation, but to call into question or it just doesn't seem quite, it's not a level playing field between what I see in that charter school versus what you're, what I'm hearing from you. And that just, I'm just bringing that up as a point because it's not a fair and equal situation. That's just one thing. And then the other question, you said the school lunch revenue, so that's gone up from $740 to $830, and you said that reflects a higher a la carte purchasing, and I'm wondering if that's related to a decrease. I mean, like, why are kids now spending more money to get food? Is it similar to the way that by eliminating SNAP, we're hearing that people are not are being lifted out of poverty? So I just wonder how we can explain that there's going to be $90,000 more in student purchases in the lunchroom next year. It doesn't really make sense to me. Just knowing what's going on with the economy. So just wondering if we could.
So in the school lunch program, when you buy the hot meal, that's where you're able to put through your claims through the CMP program? And there's a calculation that you go through per each meal that's served. They don't do that on the a la carte menu. A la carte is for the prices that the students want to pay. So if they go in and they go through the line and they get the hot lunch, then that's where the claims go through, and they'll get a full hot lunch. But if they choose not to get a hot lunch and they want to go through the a la carte, then they pay through the a la carte. Now, if they have X amount of dollars that are allotted with them on their account on some of the free and reduced, there are some free and reduced things that are in there. If they choose not to get them, then that's where they'll pay for their items.
So you anticipate there'll be more of that in the next year?
That's the trend that they're seeing, yes.
The trend is that the kids are paying more for a la carte.
The trend is that they're buying more
Right.
a la carte items than they are going through the line.
Okay.
Good evening, Superintendent. Thank you for you and your team for being here tonight, and I'm glad that we're all here together working on this budget because we all care about education in South Kingstown. So I'm clear, so this year your budget request is you're going to be using $1 million of your operation from the fund balance, and then on page the fund balance scenario, CIP versus operations. So then next year, if you did the same thing, it'd be in a deficit, right?
So referring to the scenarios?
That's right, yeah.
So
It's page 13?
So yes, well, we can use these scenarios in multiple ways if we wanted to, whether we said, okay, this could be next year, this could be the year after. So in terms of the CIP, year one, that's contemplating we're using $1 million for operations, and then on top it says, well, we need these things. We need that roof fixed, which we do. We need so spend more out of your fund balance, and we will give you the state aid reimbursement back to help ease that cost. And so while it helps ease that cost, if we were to do that next year, our remaining unrestricted fund balance and our restricted fund balance, essentially we could not in CIP year two do both. We would have to have $1 million fall out because we don't have $1 million in unrestricted that we could use for operations. We could, however, continue to give $1 million towards the CIP because we have that reimbursement piece boosting up that second year. But again, at the end of that second year, once again, if we're continuing to use fund balance for operations, it's quickly, by year 3, there isn't enough in unrestricted to maintain that.
Well, it's unsustainable,
Correct.
right?
Yes,
I
sir.
mean, that's what really kind of what stuck out to me was this is an unsustainable strategy, right? For funding operations, which is such an important part of what you do. So that was my question for now.
Thank you.
If we can stay on the CIP program for a bit, the detailed budget that you've got, I'm looking at, the pages aren't numbered, but it's UCA 57,000, the account number, property and capital expenditures. For 25-26, you're showing 1.45 million having been spent.
So one of the things I was
I
going
don't
to say is, in the future, make sure everything has a page number, because some of your slides have page numbers and others don't.
Yeah.
And we've just seen this now.
My question with respect to the 1.45 in this year's budget is if you're spending 1.45 by June 30, you are going to be eligible for reimbursement for a portion of that from RIDE in the 26-27 year. Do you have a figure for how much of the 1.45 you're going to be eligible to collect?
So we're in the process of submitting as they get completed. We're making sure to get them to Mr. Trimble at RIDE. So in terms of which ones at this time, I don't have a set number. Is that what we've submitted thus far? So thus far, we've submitted 786,754. So we can go back and ask Mr. Trimble, based on those submissions, which are eligible for housing aid.
So that 786, is that the amount that you have completed and spent, or the amount you expect to be reimbursed?
Completed and spent thus far to date, because some projects can't get going due to the weather.
All right.
I'll need to go through each and every one, though, to see if they're eligible, and because in some cases, they might fall eligible because they fall as emergencies, under emergency contingency. Others might not, in that they were emergencies for us to be in compliance, but they're not refundable.
You can correct me if I misunderstand, but anything that was listed in the Phase 2 submission that was approved by RIDE on December 23rd, December 19, 2023, is eligible for the 52% reimbursement. Is that correct?
If it were filed when those contracts were signed, so that
Right.
window, and we talked about this at length at the last meeting,
Yeah.
Or the CIP. So those contracts needed to be signed, I believe in June of 24. Those contracts, in order to get that higher reimbursement, needed to be executed. We can still submit those projects and receive the 35.
I think Luke had talked with us about bundling
Yes.
on the completion of a project, but you don't know.
We are unable to bundle because it had to be done by 24.
So that's why you're saying you'd only be eligible for 35%.
That is correct, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
To follow up on that question there, so you got 1.14 million CIP expenditures, of which 1.145, of which you anticipate reimbursement equal to 35% of that amount
Ideally,
at some point?
ideally, however, again, we submit everything that we do in order to get to our maintenance of effort, whether it is our 3% requirement, which again, we had the shortfall last year because the courts, the parking lot at West Kingstown West Kingston, excuse me, was not completed. So we did not meet our maintenance of effort requirement. We since have submitted, and the state has released all of those prior obligations. So in terms of in terms of the projects, we submit everything to make sure that all of our expenditures fall under that cap, but they may not be projects that are reimbursable. For example, if they are related to changes in state law for providing sanitary products and dispensers. I bring that up because it's a real one. That was a cost we incurred. However, it is not reimbursable as 35%. It is still a capital, or excuse me, maintenance goes towards our maintenance of effort. So again, coming up with what projects have been completed, are in the queue, and qualify for the 35% versus 35%, or excuse me, not 35%, but towards the 3% is something that we would need to break out.
All right, so it's unclear at this time as to how much is known to be reimbursed at a rate of 35%. Are you saying that?
That is accurate, yes, sir.
Do we have any idea as to how much, percent of the 1.145 is going to be reimbursed at a rate of 35%?
We'd have to get into our projects, specifically considering that we have the last remaining major project is a roof for Broad Rock Middle School, or a portion of the roof for Broad Rock Middle School at over $500,000. We believe that is reimbursable at the 35%. So again, moving forward, our major project we know is reimbursable. As to what we've submitted and what the state will qualify as, that was an expense you incurred. We'll bundle it under emergency versus it's not an emergency, it's just a cap. You didn't need to replace, let's say, the carpets. You just did it because they were torn and a safety hazard. That's not reimbursable. So we would need to go in and see which one falls in the bucket. If, though, the carpets happen to be brought up in that approved list of projects, they would be reimbursable at that 35%.
All right, so at a minimum, you anticipate that 500,000 of the 1.145 is subject to a 35% reimbursement. Can you say that?
At least, I can.
Okay, and 35% of 500,000, let's just guesstimate around 140,000.
Yes, sir.
And we anticipate that reimbursement to come next year at some point, next fiscal year. Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Okay.
There are 2 times.
We're going to leave that there, and I got a few more questions. Can we go back to the revenue and expenditure slide, sort of at the end? All right, when we look at 25-26, are we looking at the anticipated year-end amounts, projections here? Yes? Okay, so by looking at the total revenues over the total expenses, it looks like there's an anticipated budget surplus of around 250,000? I mean, that's just taking the revenues minus the expenses. Yes?
At that time.
Yes? Okay. Can we now go to the fund balance slide? I believe it's slide 12. All right, when I look at this slide, I don't see anywhere the anticipated budget surplus for the year ended June 30, 2026 accounted for here. I would expect that budget surplus would increase the fund balance by that around 250,000. In addition to that, I would expect at a minimum the amount of the fund balance to be increased by that 140,000, which we established earlier of the 1.145 paid in capital expenditures. We at least expect 500,000 to be subject to 35% reimbursement, which would come to an amount of 140,000. So there, I see that there's 390,000 at minimum. It could be more than that. That's excluded from this fund balance here. Is that fair to say?
Yes, however, the return of housing aid does not come to the school district. It comes back to the town in terms of fund balance, in terms of going into the general fund. There is nothing that, and even if we were to come to an agreement, RIDE would not be sending that to us. They would be sending it back to the town. So the conversations that we've had, because we don't have a memorandum of agreement, because I did not include any anticipated fund balance or return from housing aid into our fund balance, because that has not been past practice. I did so in the scenarios showing that, okay, we could, if that agreement came in, by putting it into a restricted fund, we can start to build or start to maintain or get another year out of it, but it is not a current practice. Our fund balance is built off of surpluses from prior fiscal years' operating budgets only. It has not been from reimbursements.
All right, that's fair, but it should include the 250,000 surplus, which it does not.
Yes, that is.
That is fair to say. It should
That
include
is
it, but it
fair to
does not.
say. However, the reason that it is not is we have also incurred, I mentioned the 15 salaries that were reduced, the positions, the 15 were originally 17. We had to bring on 2 other positions this school year that we did not originally budget for. A grade 2 teacher at West Kingston, and then a .5 preschool coordinator, and 2.5, and a dean, because the previous assistant principal position at Peacedale could not be filled. That role, that administrator filled both roles. We could not find a candidate to satisfy both roles, so we do have additional staffing that was not budgeted for, and as such, we anticipate the potential need for those surplus funds.
All right, so a little uncertainty there.
Yes,
so
sir.
you being sort of conservative and that don't want to account for it now. We're going to see where year end actually hits when we get there.
That is correct,
That's
sir.
fair. Okay, Curtis Corner Middle School. What are the costs associated with keeping that building up?
I believe, as of right now, keeping the building up. Right now, we're getting ready to shut off the power, shut off the water. It's ready for demolition, and then we reduce. Unfortunately, the savings on our insurance isn't that high because there's nobody in the building, but we would basically only be saving insurance costs at this time through the trust, which was and utilities.
Any idea what the annual operating cost to keep the building up is? The reason I'm asking the question is because you're not going to incur those costs anymore because of the demolition. This budget was submitted February 14. We made the decision to do demolition March 23rd on or about. So I can't imagine this budget already accounts for maybe 80 to 100,000 in annual costs no longer incurred related to the building. But I don't know the annual cost. I just hoping to get that
Off
number.
the top of my head, I don't know the annual cost. I know they weren't significant as the heat was on just to stop the pipes from bursting. There were no activities outside of Mr. Lynch, storing equipment in there and making sure that the lights can get out and about. But in terms of no areas of that building were being used for, at least this school year, were used in any capacity for individuals and other than storage. So again, the costs in terms of water, since that building's been shut down, have been minimal, and the heating has been set at a level, again, to stop destruction of it, which will ultimately be destruction.
All right, I'm going to go to Town Manager Jim Manny. You have an answer on that?
I do. Our facilities director estimates that the middle school is approximately $80,000 per year to keep it open. The elementary schools were about $60,000.
Well, that's positive news, right? No longer going to have to incur those costs, keep it up?
Given the price of energy, absolutely.
All right.
And was that taken into account in putting this budget together? That you
It
would
was not.
It was not.
I appreciate all your accounting, and I think what Rory's trying to do is identify where you could reduce your ask, right? Because he's identifying some savings. I was laughing. He's an excellent lawyer tonight, so I appreciate him. Yeah, and CPA. So I appreciate you tonight, Rory, for that. I have a question about, just a general question about class sizes. You said you weren't reducing teachers because your words were something like at acceptable enrollment levels, but I was like, is that contractual or is that best practice? Like, I would certainly like a kindergarten class to be 18, but maybe it's 21 is the max size. So what are the class sizes?
It will vary. Our contractual class sizes in grades K through yes, K through 3 are 22, and then in grades 4 and 5 get to 25.
But what you said was something about we can't reduce a classroom teacher because we can't collapse a grade
Correct.
because the classrooms are at adequate levels, which
As well
wasn't
as-
at contractual obligation. So I don't know if I'm picky about the wording or was curious what you,
Yeah, so what I meant is both, is that we're contractually compliant, and some grades in that class average, in some cases, are right up against,
yep, I know.
you know,
like what-
as an average, and
Yep.
sometimes vary by school. Or in others, it's a matter of, in terms of equitable class sizes where, that's at 17 or 18 across the district. Both, that's a great class size and still can absorb more. So we are, I can tell you right now that,
Because what we hear is that there might be, what we tried to correct years ago by closing one school, there's a continuing disparity. I feel like there's only 3 choices, so in my opinion, Peacedale is very full, West Kingston is very full, so by default, is Matunic where you have lower class sizes? Just curious.
on average, we tend to have lower class sizes there. However, there isn't one where I've got 2
You can't
sections of 22
Yeah.
that I could go down to 1.
Correct.
We're not carrying any of those at Matunic.
I just wanted to ask it for the community. I really do, this is a really interesting presentation, probably one of the better ones in terms of like visuals and understanding the complexity of the budget. I didn't say that. Been through, I don't know, a lot of superintendents, like probably like 5, I feel like, since I've been on the council. So this is, I guess a better understanding of like all the different factors, but I wanted to go back and talk a little bit about how we got to the level funding of the schools in 2020. You know, it was COVID and people didn't know, and you know, this time in 2020, that was the last meeting and the world shut down and it wasn't on the council, and you know, people didn't know what we were doing, how we were going to buy groceries. Everything has changed. So what we did then, and every year since I'm in the council, and I'm sure I'm not saying anything you don't know, is we agreed to a level fund transfer to the schools, and we said, if you need money, you can come back and we will take care of you. So I don't want anyone to stress that, like, in the last 6 years, the schools haven't come and said, hey, we have an unexpected expense, you know, there's a roof repair we can't make, there's HVAC. So we haven't had that. So for the last 6 years, you have had what you need to run the schools,
Absolutely.
correct? Okay.
That's correct, especially given, again, the declining enrollment.
Right.
I believe percentage-wise, largest in the state, second only probably to Little Compton, and then when you put Little Compton and then Providence.
So you
again,
have had what you needed for the last 6 years? Because I will speak for, I'm pretty sure none of us want the children to not be cared for, educated, supported in a safe way.
Can I just address that, because it is a great question, and we have been thoughtful in our response to level funding over these years, because the first year, you are absolutely right, it was the pandemic and there were ESSER funds, and then the second year we closed Wakefield and had those savings, and then we closed Curtis Corner and we had those savings. And then the last year, we right-sized our high school, making sure we didn't run extra sections of classes. All of these were done through personnel. I mean, that's where the savings come from,
Right.
is FTEs. We don't have any more schools to close. We've already right-sized the high school. We're cutting 4 more positions for next year, already in our budget. So we didn't have to come back to you because we had a path forward. We are coming to you now because there is no path forward without an increase. That's the truth. There is no more closings of school. There's no more funds I mean, we may end up with less federal aid. We're kind of being optimistic there by just saying we're going to be level funded. But we're going to have to talk about cutting programs next.
So I'm going to just stop you because I appreciate what you're saying. So I want to say, first of all, the community shouldn't be afraid that football is going to be cut or theater is going to change, because we're literally investing.
Can I just
But
interrupt?
that was.
Don't float it. Don't float
Okay.
it. You're floating it. Don't float it because we
So
haven't said it.
I won't say it again.
Thank you.
I don't believe in scaring people, because children are people's, precious people. And we wouldn't be investing in a theater program in a larger than required auditorium, larger space, larger music rooms. We wouldn't be, it's not fair to float that anywhere. And I just want to say it because that's what really grinds my gears, because we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't touch those things. So I don't like that part, but I'm going to go back to the level funding piece. If you needed something, the council would want you to come back. You didn't. But we hear you, but even Rory has identified very carefully and skillfully some reductions that we could make on our side. We also are building a $150 million high school, and it's not that we're not contributing on the municipal side. What's the bond interest payment that we will make this year, anticipating the second year of the bands?
So I've discussed this at length with Brian Sylvia. So at this year, we're approximately $1 million just underneath in bands. It goes up about $1 million per year on top of that. With the balloon amount, once the full bond is issued, that'll be between $6.5 to $7 million per year for the town.
So that's money that we're going to have to come up with to cover the high school. The community is already supporting the expense of that project. So even to say there's not money for the school, last year we had to pull a bond anticipation note, did we not? Yes. And did we not pay interest on that? We did, right? And that didn't come out on your side, it was on our side. So the high school project is funded through municipal increases. Is that correct? Because we're not transferring the money and you're making the payment, Brian's making the payment, right?
It's 100% correct, yes.
Okay.
And I just want to add something. I didn't do this in a vacuum by level funding. I didn't have this information in front of me anyway, but that interest that we owe on these for the debt service is staggering.
Right. So, and then I know we talked about it at our meeting last week, what the property tax increase would be on the municipal side, plus your request of 2.5 million exceeds the state cap of 4%, correct? Am I correct?
If the town could not give 2.5 million, we would exceed the 4% cap on the levy set by state law.
Okay. I want to say that I don't have any problem at any time if the school committee needed to come back for capital projects and say, this is an expense, can you help us with this? I would be the first one to make the motion to make sure it happened. I don't want to hurt one child that goes to that school. I feel a huge responsibility to 30,000 people that asked all of us to serve and be responsible with the tax dollars. This budget is the most important thing that we do annually. It is asking our neighbors who literally have a 75-cent increase in the gasoline prices in the last 3 weeks. We are still in an unknown, weird spot. It's so not fun. It's so frightening. I know a lot of you know I'm a therapist in my full-time job, and everybody comes in and talks about what the world is, whether you're on one side or the other. That's what I have to hold space for. So I know people are truly afraid for what's going to happen, and they're holding their breath. And so I take that's the barometer for me, that people are worried about all of those things, and
So-
I want to be mindful.
So Deb, we have to have a balanced budget. We can't come back to you later if we need money. We would have to make the cuts up front. We would have to find another 2.5 million in cuts. after already finding close to 700,000 in cuts and taking $1 million out of fund balance. We don't know where to cut 2.5 million from our budget. We can't come back to you if we need it later. We would have to cut now. So this is the challenge. We want to work together with you to solve it, but we need a solution. I mean, by keeping 1.9 million in our fund balance, that's about 3% of our fund balance. Could we take more this year? Yes, but that's unsustainable. Jay was absolutely right. That's a one-year solution. We had a one-year solution last year. I said it last year. This is great. We've plugged the hole with that 600,000 special transfer, but it was a one-year only solution, and it put us in a structural deficit going into this year. We knew that. So that compounds our problem. We have $1 million less in revenue between that 600,000 one-time money and what the state isn't giving us. That has to be, I mean, where are you going to get $1 million? That's not even expenses, that's less revenue. And then everything is going up. The town's operational budget is going up 5%. That's what it is. That's the reality we're in.
But isn't half of that is the school bond, correct?
No, that's debt service. That's operational budget 5%. Our operational budget is proposed to go up 3.9%.
But our budget increase, the municipal increase, includes the millions for the debt service. Who's nodding with me?
So one of the things that we learned the other night is that for every $87,765, am I right, Brian? I can't believe I got that right. That is equivalent to 1 cent in the tax rate. So $2.5 million, I did the math, like rough math. So is it like 28 cents?
Yes, approximately.
So that would be 28 cents per thousand to the tax rate. And we already have 15 cents in the municipal budget. So that would be 43 cents to the tax rate, which would be brutal, right? Jim?
So the other thing is, you have choices. You don't have to raise the tax rate.
Yep, I'm going to jump in here and sort of clarify this. So to the extent we rely on increasing the tax levy to raise the funds, to give the increase in the property tax transfer, yes, it would result in that increase in the tax rate. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
And to the extent we found alternative ways to fund any increase that is not reliant on increasing the tax levy, there would not be a tax increase.
Can you say that again? I'm sorry.
To the extent we do not increase the tax levy to fund any increase in the property tax transfer, there would not be an increase in the tax rate.
That's correct.
Thank you.
You could make a donation.
I don't even understand what you said the second time.
I just wanted to kind of chime in and maybe hopefully if we can take the temperature down a little bit, because what Carol is trying to get across, and what Michael did a wonderful job getting across, is we're here in a collaborative manner. To your point, yes, we are very aware. We're watching the building go up, right? It's amazing, but also, to your point, it's very scary. It's very scary to be on these boards making these decisions knowing the impact, right? But what is really scary is building that building, but not being able to meet our needs in the building up until it opens. And so what Michael has done a great job kind of mapping out is not even necessarily how we got here, because the point is this is where we're at. And we need to find a way to work together. And to your point, Rory, we need to get creative. We need to do something. We need to give. And should he sharpen his pencils and go in and be like, all right, Curtis Corner, minus 80. That needs to continue, obviously. And I think it's a great way to collaborate here. But also 80 isn't 2.5 million, right? And so what we don't want to do is disrupt programs. What we don't want to do is disrupt the positive impacts that we have had over these past 2 years that is actually stopping the hemorrhaging of students going out. But as we all know, by stopping that, it's going to cost more. There's more students going to be coming in, right? And so we have to work together to find a way to figure this out. And I think that's kind of what Carol's trying to say. Like, we are here saying we need to find a way to make it work together. And we don't know any other way except for to make the ask and then have the conversation to figure something out.
One more time, sorry. So, slightly different topic. In the community, we're told, and I need, I guess maybe the superintendent maybe to speak to this, is that when the high school is built, there'll be a continued right sizing of staff, either through attrition or whatever. Can you help us understand what that means?
So when we right size, that actually, if basically between that breakage and that attrition, so once we have, basically, what we need to do at the high school, at any high school level, what you need to do is you need to have your graduation requirements, both state and then any other local requirements that are on there. So making sure that you have enough faculty and staff in each department to provide the requisite number of courses necessary in order to graduate. Depending on where students are, or as the number of students change, you might see changes in certain departments because there are more credits that need to be taken. For example, in mathematics and English, there are required 4 credits. And then in some cases, because you have a schedule that then you have electives as well, are filled with other courses from that piece. So when you right size the building, so one of our is, do you need as many sections given the new cohort size? So when you had 250, 300 graduating classes of 300, 400, obviously your scope your scope and scale of the teachers that you need, okay, you have the requisite number, but then you still have to fill kids' schedules. As that number goes down, and as we have done, you change that number because to fit the number of courses that the kids take.
I'm following you,
Yep.
except that I thought the number at the high school was pretty even, right? It's under like 800, right? So
Currently? Yes.
how when is the high school opening? 1 year from June, right? August, right? In 1 year, how is that going to change the then necessity? I'm just trying to understand why the high school staffing would be reduced when the new high school opens. A simple, that's what we hear.
No, if anything.
Many people have
if this new building, if you're successful, if we are successful in how this school was sold to the community, as well as in the investment in the CTE spaces, we would then be retaining students who might go to others programs, as well as we start drawing in, and we would want to see it, hope to see enrollment go up.
Well, that's you're now saying the opposite of what we're hearing.
What I'm saying is that regardless, to right size, it's not based off of a specific building. It is based off of the number of students that building serves.
With all due respect, I just don't understand how it's said that the high school, when it's opened, will have less faculty.
I've never made that statement.
So
Did you hear that come from this
which I would.
room
So I'm just
tonight?
trying to understand. So you're now so whoever is saying that is wrong.
That is correct.
Wow.
They would be wrong. So in every case, every school, doesn't matter whether it's an elementary school or the middle school. Middle school is a little bit different because in a middle school model, you're operating with teams, and so you have to have a requisite number of faculty on each team. So that's a little bit different, but across the fundamental basis is the same in terms of staffing. It's dependent on the number of students you have before you.
Correct. So
And
that's why that
so-
information comes from someone who's involved, and it doesn't make sense to me. Like it doesn't compute. If the high school stays the same number of students, we would have essentially the same faculty number. If
Yes.
we get And I really pray that we bring back the students that are in other CTE programs. I really want them to come back.
Absolutely.
Because that will solve a lot of our problems. Many problems, which is a reason why we should be very careful about what we fund, because once we raise the floor, with all due respect, you wouldn't want to give it back. And so we have to be careful on our side, because in 1 year, you could have 15 new kids at the high school and flip your budget substantially. So, I don't know.
If I may, I'd love
You're
to go
not
back-
answering
No,
you're telling me that it's not true.
Yes. I'll first go back to your original point, which is, or the first part, and say thank you for the compliment on the slide deck. This slide deck is actually the final piece. These topics have not changed since our budget meetings in December. We've given, unfortunately, I say to them that they've been sitting through Titanic and, Avatar. Every time I've been presenting the same things. And now, while it may have come up in conversation that, hey, if we don't get this money, we need to look at other things that are in the BEP, but they're all posted on board docs, they are all recorded on YouTube. At no time are we putting things out there like, hey, let's rally and sports or football. That is not any sport, again, when we're talking about millions. So those
The
pieces, while we would have had
$150,000 for football, I think we would find the money to make sure that absolutely happens.
So that is not something we are promulgating, and conversely, I have not promulgated any saying that the staff would be decreased in the new high school. It would be based off of enrollment, and if anything, we would be looking at our current staffing to see how many, if it comes to fruition with students returning or coming to the district, what is our capacity to take in new students? We do need to take a look at our CTE programming and say, do we have enough of that if the applications came in? So for example, our woodworking CTE, we currently have 1.5, and it's filled with SK students. So potentially, even if we had applicants from outside, would we be able? Because again, our obligation is to the students that we serve. And the last point I would make is absolutely, I appreciate and wholeheartedly believe that, again, you're here for every constituent, for the children. Again, that isn't lip service. You wouldn't, again, day in, day out. I mean, last week you all had 3 meetings. You guys give selflessly of your time. So again, that is never questioned, and I sure hope that didn't come across in any part of this presentation. If so, I apologize.
It absolutely did
okay.
not. It's just important that it's just the same, when the school stays the same size, many people, which would be keyboard warriors, might say, why would they need an increase? And I do understand utilities, transportation. If you sit through the presentation, it's not, you're not buying fancy whatever. But we have to be mindful that that comes from other people. At the same time, that comes from the taxpayers. And at the same time, we hear from people, our taxes are too high. Can you do a homestead exemption? If you sat through any of those meetings, that's another puzzle that we've been spending hours on, that people want some sort of tax relief. And I've said at those meetings, we can have tax relief or we could spend less, because that also helps people. So we argue a lot about $87,000 a lot, and I don't want to, it's not fun. But I do go back to, if you needed it, if you could create a budget that was level funded, and then could identify what the town could come to and either fund the capital projects or whatever, we would maintain that level in a way that was at least palatable to many people. I don't know. I'm trying to come up with a solution. I really am. I'm not trying to be a jerk.
Whatever solution we come up with, there has to be an increase this year, because next year's budget is just not going to be feasible without raising the floor. It's going to be a much tougher discussion, and we're not going to be able to pull from fund balance the way we were able to do it this year. So it's going to, by level funding this year, you're punting to next year, and it's going to be a much more painful conversation, and much more painful decisions would have to be made.
But I think the conversation can't be an either or. We understand that what you've come and told us, to go back to Kate and Carol's comments, we understand that what you've come and told us is you need $2.5 million according to your assessment, and we have additional complicating factors because the state does not allow us to, and I don't know about the rest of the council, I'm not going to ask the legislature to go for more than 4%. That's the maximum by state law. So we have that ceiling. You're talking about the floor, we're talking about the ceiling. That's something else that the council has to take into account. But just in terms of getting the numbers straight first, what you've asked for is 2.5, but from what you heard from the trust on Friday, it's closer to 3, correct?
It is now, yes, sir.
So that's one part of the conversation that's already changed. What we need to do is figure out a combination of solutions. Rory's been running through some numbers. That's helpful. That'll change your uniform UCA chart of accounts. And yeah, Kate's laughing because I'm always lousy with the initials, and I didn't even get into GFOA today. But I think we can do this. We're also under a time pressure under the charter because we only have days to come up with the preliminary budget. So this is going to continue to be a long discussion tonight.
May I also add in, because we're clearly going to be advocating on the legislation side with the governor, because clearly that needs to be done. If South Kingstown's still one of the biggest losers, which we have been in state aid, I think this is year 12. So I also would suggest, I've seen some photo ops with our dear governor and some of our town officials. Conversations could be had and kind of like pressure being put on. It is untenable. It's untenable, to James's point. Like knowing, and I do sit through a lot of your meetings, sometimes not by choice, but
We fixed
I'm
that.
a
We
hostage.
fixed that.
No, I'm kidding. I actually do enjoy. I would have liked to come. I tried to come to your budget meetings outside of the school because I like to know what's going on in general. Because I also am a taxpayer who lives in this town. But I am fully aware of what our community is struggling with, and so it is about kind of coming together, but also going to the state and saying, hey, yes, we have community wealth, but yes, we also have these other extenuating circumstances that Narragansett and New Shoreham and Jamestown do not navigate. So I think there's a combination of effort there.
There's actually another one too, which is the RIPAC study proposing a change in the funding formula. But funding formula or negotiations with the governor's office and the legislature for a change in the budget isn't going to get us an answer in the next 10 days. And we have to have a budget preliminary in the next 10 days.
You can go.
If I could just ask Mr. Pedraza, when you did the slide about the community wealth, you mentioned that we were behind only Providence, Central Falls, and Woonsocket.
That was in regards to the total, the amount of dollars in reductions. That was not in terms of community wealth. The community.
Yeah, okay. So my question, it's not going to get us an extra $100,000, but it's something for community members to think about. Providence and Central Falls are still being run by the state, are they not?
Yes.
And is Woonsocket?
I take that back. Central Falls may not be
Central Falls may have
completely.
come out of that.
They've made enough strides and at the very least have petitioned to come out. Again.
Okay.
But yes, they have been under state control.
And again, I haven't found any money. I tried to plant the money tree, but it didn't work. But I do have a couple of comments, more, two of them addressed to Ms. Bergner's community questions. So Mr. Pedraza pointed out that we have more charter schools in our district than anywhere else.
to go back a little bit, when charter schools were first implemented, they were implemented with a goal of being placed in low-performing districts to give families a choice of another school that they could send their children to when the public school that they were supposed to send their children to was a low-performing school. We have an administration here in the state that are very pro-charter schools, and we're stuck with the two charters and the state school. The other comment I want to make is about block scheduling. Again, not finding any money, but I'm talking about it from a pedagogical point of view. I taught in the 7-period, 43-minute class situation. I also taught in the block scheduling situation. The reason the block scheduling first came out was to enable teachers to delve deeper into a subject and get off the surface. Because now, instead of 43 minutes, 4 times out of every 5 days, you've got 80 minutes, 5 days out of every 10. And it's a better learning environment for all of our learners, whether they are the advanced placement honors students or students with disabilities. It's a better situation, and I can't answer the question about could we cut faculty, but we want the best. I didn't say anything about that. No, I know, but you said, I know you didn't ask it, but you said something about a community member contacted you and asked you if we could use less teachers.
We've been told. We've been told.
Okay, so I'm telling you that educationally, the block scheduling is better. Thank you.
I got a few questions here. I just want clarity that you got a slide entitled Staffing Part 2 Reduction Fiscal Year 27. Not sure what page, right there. So this tells us there will be a reduction in FTEs of 4 as compared to the current year, 25-26?
Across all potential units, yes, sir.
Okay. Just wanted clarity there. All right, I also want to jump to, you have a slide entitled Impact of School Choice.
Yes, sir.
Now,
I can tell you what number that is when I find it here. Impact of School Choice is slide 17.
Now, earlier in the presentation, you made a statement to the effect that you anticipate 18 students returning to the public schools from the charter schools?
I do, yes, sir.
You did, correct?
I did, sir.
Okay,
yes.
My next question is, what is the basis by which you make that projection there?
So our 2 charter schools in district are elementary based, or one goes up to the middle grades, so it goes up to 8th grade. And so then at 8th grade, they can no longer continue in that charter. The other, so hence they need to enroll in a school, might be private, might be elsewhere. But they do come out, they're no longer in that charter network, and they need to enroll, in theory, in South Kingstown. The other school, charter school, ends at 5th grade. As such, we usually see, and I believe usually start the year going, oh, 6th grade numbers are higher than what we expected. They're higher than the number of 5th graders that we had last year. Where'd these guys come from? And we check if things came in, and then we noticed that when I did the analysis by grade level, those are the exact numbers for those specific schools.
Now, when a student returns from charter to the public schools, does that have an effect on expenses? Are there savings realized there or not?
Generally speaking, because we get it in that we have it already established in the economy of scale. So in terms of they're coming into classes that even if their class size is 25, let's say it's 20, so them coming in, our bottom line doesn't change or doesn't increase because that cost capacity has already been included in the creation of that teacher's schedule.
What about the state housing aid? Do you get an increase in state housing aid when a student is at charter school but decides to return to the public schools?
No, sir.
No. But we do incur a higher cost for those students that decide to go to charter instead of going to public.
Yes, because
But when they return, we don't realize any savings.
they are,
Walk me through that.
yeah, okay. So they're included in the funding formula already. So students who are enrolled as South Kingstown's responsibility are factored into our state funding formula. So they're given that per pupil amount of $13,800, I believe, somewhere around there. Every student. Now, if they have additional needs, those students might have a factor. They might incur a cost of, let's say, $14,500 or $15,000, again, just ballparking here. And then based off of those criteria, our total amount of aid is created by the state. When we have a per pupil, though, of around or over $20,000, there's obviously that $7,000 gap of that student. When they leave us, we owe the entity that takes them our local per pupil amount, not the state aid. So when they say, oh, state aid follows the child, more than state aid follows the child.
So anytime a student decides to go to charter, for example, that student is included in our number of students for purposes of state housing aid, but we have to then turn around and give a check to the charter school?
State education aid, yes, sir.
And what's that amount?
Yes, sir. It would be at a charter school this school year is $20,446 per student.
That's the amount by which the town would have to pay the charter school per student.
That is correct.
So is there a net loss to the town anytime a student goes charter?
Yes.
And what's that amount per student?
At least $7,000, whatever the difference is between state aid.
And that's how that $5,132,000 is quantified?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that, again, that number, as FY27 numbers, rates have not been published yet.
All right.
So that number too.
So when a student decides to return to a public school rather than continuing to go to charter, you no longer have to cut the check for the $20,000 to the charter.
That is correct.
So does this $5,132,000 account for the returning of 18 students that you expect?
No, sir.
But we do expect 18 students times $20,000 per student to no longer have to be an obligation of the school to pay the charter school. Right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes?
Assuming they come back to us.
And we feel pretty strong that they're going to return?
Past years, when I take a look at last year's and go, where did our sixth grade, where did this increase come from? When we looked at it, we saw that they came back in most cases. Now, ninth grade is a little bit different in some cases because there are more options. Generally, that 8th to 9th grade attrition, students choosing to go somewhere for athletics. Again, that CTE program, why students would then choose to leave the district. However, we did have an influx of returning. Again, every year we seem to get an increase of sixth graders that exceeds our previous year's fifth grade totals. And I'm accounting it too. Our local charter school ends at fifth grade, and those students, there's not the same charter network for them to continue in. And so many would come to us. However, because school choice options for middle school is limited to that one other charter provider, otherwise that you don't have that school choice flexibility until you get to high school, and that's through the CTE programs.
All right, so best case scenario, all 18 come back and they decide to go to the public schools, stay in South Kingstown, whatever it be, middle school, high school. That $20,000 per student is no longer going to have to be paid to the charter school. That would result in $20,000 times 18, around 400,000?
Like, I
If
think what
there-
you're, I
if
think
we
what you're
were-
not, what you're not taking into account is that you could have 18 additional students going
Correct.
to the charter. So we don't know what the net gain would be, because, yes, we're guessing we're going to have 18 kids coming back. But
Well,
could
that's
have-
why I prefaced this with best case scenario. So worst case scenario, no effect. It remains, the amount by which we're paying to the charter remains the same.
Worst case scenario, it actually goes up.
It goes, okay, worst case goes up.
Worst case scenario, it goes up, as unfortunately it has over the past 3 years.
Best case scenario, we have a reduction in this expense item of about 400,000. So it could be
That'd be great.
zero.
Yep. Could be zero, could owe more, as well as we could have some come back, and then we've got to take a look at what the FY27 rate is. And even if we have some come back, the FY27 rate is going to be greater than FY26, and the additional savings is once again absorbed by the additional cost of what I'll call tuition.
Okay. So
So
another area in
if
which.
the trend line was going down, I would love to say that. However, again, from 23 to 24, 24 to 25, we've gone 235, 234, 242. Again, that 242, we went up, but at the same time, we also had other students come into the district that we didn't expect because they weren't in NESDECs. So we have an additional 31. So proportionally, I can't guarantee that more students wouldn't go out, even if we have more students come to the district.
So there's another area where there's some uncertainty, but you're being conservative.
Yes, sir.
It's possible, not sure the likelihood, that this amount actual, when we realize the cost, will be less than this.
That is correct. The reality, the most certain that I can say is that the FY26 rate will be less than the FY27 rate. That's set. But these are the figures that we have, and I have to use something.
That's fair. One other thing, I want to talk about transportation. You got a slide?
Mr. McEntee, if I can just continue on what Mr. Pedraza said, I think the other factor in the charter schools and the CTEs is, in many cases, we'll go back to school in September and not know which students are coming and going, like
Who's going to the charter school? and
who's going to a charter school, and which of those sixth graders rising, seventh graders, I think I've got the grades right, and the rising ninth graders, which ones of them are coming to us and which ones of them are going elsewhere. So that's not something that we can say, oh, by this date, we're going to know which youngsters are going to charter schools, CTEs, and which are coming back to us.
Can I ask a question about high-cost special ed? Am I stealing your question? Yes. Okay, I'm going to let you ask it then. I'll follow up.
Yes, so looking at there's a huge decrease in, I guess it's the slide, reduction of state aid for high-cost special ed, and that drops by, from 534 to 233.
Yes.
And on the other side, it does indicate that students with special ed needs are reimbursed at a higher rate. So just looking for some explanation on that, and what's, and also I want to know what's going to happen to our special ed kids.
So the first, my apologies for the confusion. So when I first talk about special ed students and the funding formula, that's in terms of the foundational amount of the state aid calculation. That is for any student who has an IEP. When we talk about high-cost special ed students and special ed costs, those costs are incurred when they're, and Dr. Carson, please correct me if I'm wrong, when those costs exceed 4 times what a typical student costs incurred, they would become high-cost special ed. So generally, it becomes if they required one-to-one nursing services, if they required an out-of-district placement, potentially even out-of-state placement based on those needs, those costs would then qualify them or categorize them not only as special ed, but high-cost special ed. And then the state's reimbursement on that is based off of a formula if there is enough money in the budget for it. It has, ever since it's been passed, it's never, by the legislature, it has never been fully funded.
So is what you're saying that you could have students with needs that are not going to be reimbursed? Is that
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And so...
Well, not be reimbursed by the state. They will be taken care of. We take care of those needs regardless, whether it's reimbursed by the state or not.
So, but this is an increase in the governor's budget.
The governor did increase, I believe, a few percentage points for high-cost special ed in this fiscal year. I need to look into it. However, because it's once again a look back and then an average, I can get into the formula if you'd like. But
it's just really disturbing to see $398,000 decrease in that. And also with the, I just wonder, we talk a lot about what's happening nationally, and I wonder, with the dissolution of the Department of Education, is this flowing down to what we're seeing now with money being taken away from special needs?
In that it's coming from the state budget, I don't believe that is the case. I believe that, my best worry, I guess you would believe, would be I think we'd be impacted more by Medicaid and Medicaid reimbursements and what we are currently see as in terms of revenue sources, as that is going, obviously that differs by state in terms of Medicaid rates and when the phase outs come in and out and how much money is available. But in terms, which oftentimes high cost special ed also incurs when we do give them their services. We are able to bill for those Medicaid services, but I do not see or have not heard directly of a correlation between federal funding and the state in high-cost special needs.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just going to follow up because I might have missed some of the beginning part, and I apologize. So the reduction, you came up with the number 223, whatever, 026.
That is correct.
Is it because we have less students with high cost needs, or is it you're anticipating a reduction in the reimbursement?
So it's potentially both, because it is such a multifaceted formula that's not just using your current enrollment. It's using, I believe, 3-year rollback and averages as well.
Okay.
So
I have a hard time understanding how you got to 233 when the last couple of years it was around $500,000 close.
correct.
Between,
I have the same question too. If you go to the governor's state aid, that's what they awarded us. That is not a calculation that we have any hand in. That is what is delivered to us. I can provide. Actually, I believe that link, or what was a link at one time, gives that complete breakdown.
I mean, because we're going to argue pretty hard for a couple $100,000, and I think that I don't want to make more enemies when the state really owes us an extra $300,000. You know what I'm saying? I'll fight about something else, but I don't want to fight about that.
I'm happy to send you the link right now in
Well,
terms of
who-
every LEA, every charter school right here.
Who can we advocate that that's wrong? Where do we need to go with that?
I think we need to write to the governor,
wrong to
don't
do,
we?
okay.
I mean,
I think it's
Wrong-
also
wrong
worth-
to do, not
It's
wrong
also
in
worth
that
looking,
I'm
and you
reporting
can
it out,
see
yeah.
that it's a trend, that it's come down, right? So it's been going on since '23. It just was a very distinct drop for this time around. But it went from, in 2023-24, it went from 809 to,
No, I'm over here. We're at 482, 575, 534, 223.
oh, gotcha. All right, yep, I'm looking at the
It just
total.
doesn't make
Sorry.
any sense.
Right, so I'm wondering if it's going to end up to be in your favor. And that's a couple $100,000, and like I said, we're going to look for every penny, so.
I'm afraid that
Can
it's
you-
changing priorities.
Can you do some research? Can you call the governor's office? Can you verify? I know that's what it is, but is it wrong? Is it correct? Is it going to be that, or?
I believe the General Assembly puts out their own budget, so they might agree or disagree with the governor's number, so that number could change, but I don't know if it's going to change in time for us to put through a budget per town ordinance, the town regulations.
Right. And to be clear, that the state has never fully funded high-cost special education. They have never fully funded it. I think the highest rate that they've ever funded it is at 45%.
So, okay. So then my other question, and I try to ask the same for everybody. So I noticed that you have a 2% increase for administrative raises. If we were to ask you to forgo it, I would also ask the town council to forgo it. I know it's painful on everybody's side, but you can't really change the contractual obligations. I know it's only like 50,000 in your 2.7 million salaries for admin, but like there's another place that we would ask of you, and I would want to ask of the town, right? So that they're getting, if you're giving your staff a 2% raise, as Jim is, we could go 1.5. We could go 1 for a year. I mean, we're in a weird place, and it's not a lot of money, but every 100,000 is a penny. So, and for us, we have had brawls about 4 cents, 8 cents, 12 cents, a lot. And so it's something to think about, an identified cut. We could ask Jim to do the same if you were to do the same. And it's not fun. The staff works super hard, but you can't change other salaries.
Absolutely. So, in terms of our budget ask, again, outside of diving in, to more structural deficits into our fund balance, everything is going to need to be on the table. Everything's on the table. And ultimately what that means is that we take a look at the basic education plan, or the BEP, and we look to see what that minimum requirement is, and potentially where we are exceeding that. And that in every case, wherever we are exceeding it, again, is the things that we look at, as well as, again, go back to any flexible costs or negotiable costs or contract. We look to, again, maximize those savings, and we put that out there on the table.
It's not a fun request. It's certainly not, people don't get excited about that, but there are ways people can. I wouldn't want to ask of you to do that of your staff if it wasn't going to happen on the town side. So you don't have to go and
We look
that
at everything.
It's not that much money, because I did look at your salary increase. I think it's 45,000, but it's something. Jim's side might be more.
If I can go back to the discussion about CIP, your slide 13 is basically hypotheticals. It's not taken into account in the budget presentation
Absolutely.
itself.
Yes, sir.
So that's one. Second, I pointed out to you the line item UCA 57,000 shows 1.45 million spent in 25-26 and nothing planned for 26-27.
What page?
And
I have no idea.
this is the unnumbered document. And you're showing 1.45 in paren for the dollar change. I get that. One of my questions is, how do you meet the RIDE requirement for 3% maintenance if you're not putting that money into CIP? And then I got a follow-up.
So we have, again, there are generally 3 ways to make our 3%. You have the 3% of annual operating budget. You have 3% of facilities replacement costs, which again, and the square footage that's going to be of the total buildings. What we will have going for us, and that we have email confirmation, is that payment on the debt service goes towards that maintenance of effort.
The town's payment on the debt service is credited to you for purposes of rides
Maintenance of
regulations.
efforts for facilities and maintenance,
Okay.
because ultimately you are improving the facilities and maintaining it.
And I don't have the figure in front of me, Brian, but I assume that that more than exceeds the 3%.
For next year, not including bands, just the existing debt on the books, approximately, I can't recall if it's 330,000 or 350,000 for school-related debt.
So that would meet the ride requirement, you think?
I'd need to come up with that. Again, given that certain facilities costs are allowable while others are not, we are close, especially with that debt service.
I mean, part of my concern here is with, essentially a zero in that column, are we kicking the can down the road for regular maintenance on the roof at Matunic Elementary?
Yes.
Or
Yes, unfortunately, yes, because that roof at Matunic needs to be replaced.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And last thing, Mr. Superintendent, I think we talked a little bit about it at the last meeting, late December. One of the things you guys are trying to work to do as far as making expenses toward those capital improvements that were identified in the RIDE application. You're identifying those that can be completed on the shorter end as compared to the longer end, allowing us to recoup more reimbursement faster and sort of apply it toward future years' capital improvements every year thereafter. That's sort of the strategy you're utilizing?
Yes, sir. Assuming we are not dealing with an emergency situation, which then takes some of those offline. For example, a roof leak, or we put something, a file, a cost with the trust, and it is then not covered by the trust, and then we have to pay those bills in order to get those emergency pieces put in. So ideally, yes, we are putting those in, and again, those are some of the, I can come up with examples of the projects that we've put in thus far, and we'll crosswalk those to that list. So anytime we can do small projects and get that 35% reimbursement, we're aiming to do so.
All right, last thought. As it relates to the 1.145 of capital improvement expenditures, a majority of those can be completed on the shorter end, hopefully allowing us to get reimbursement sooner rather than later.
Yes, sir.
Great. Brian, what do you got?
I just wanted to point out on the capital and the 3% required on maintenance of effort. It was alluded to earlier where this year the maintenance of effort wasn't made last year and the housing aid was withheld this year. That will become very important the year the bond is issued, because the town would be expecting that $4 million approximately in state aid towards the debt service payments. So obviously every year we want to get the housing aid from the state, but that a year from now is very important to get that state aid from on the first year of the debt service payments.
All right. So we're now going to reach public comment segment. Anyone in the audience who wishes to speak, I've invited to come on up. We just asked you introduce yourself. To the extent you have questions, we'll try to point you to our professionals to answer them, and we're just going to ask that you be limited to 5 minutes. When you begin speaking, this clock will begin down from 5. Go ahead.
Jennifer Nurbon. I find the proposed budget increase unreasonable and out of touch with the families are experiencing right now. And in real life, when households face rising costs, they make difficult choices. They cut back, reprioritize, and in many cases simply go without. And that same discipline should apply here. A $5.7 million busing cost, that kind of blows me away. That demands a serious review. Where are the efficiencies? What reductions have been explored? Spending as usual, it's not acceptable in this environment. The proposal to absorb a 10% increase in lifetime employee insurance benefits, I saw that on there. That also needs to be reconsidered. On my over 32-year corporate career, I've seen benefits evolve. Health plans scaled back, pensions replaced with 401ks because organizations had to adapt to financial realities. It's not unreasonable to expect similar evaluation here. The argument that residents are wealthier because property values have increased is so misleading, and I personally find that to be completely ridiculous. Many homeowners are effectively stuck. They're unable to downsize due to high interest rates and the current housing market, and increased property value doesn't equal disposable income. Okay, and the fact that my property went up $200,000, my home insurance went up $2,000. Try and work that into the budget. Additionally, you all got $150 million for your school building, okay, which we have to pay for now. And it's difficult to justify asking us, the taxpayers, for more, especially when this proposal risks exceeding the 4% tax cap, something that I feel 90% of the residents of this town have no idea what that even means. The budget includes what appears to be discretionary or excessive spending at a time when restraint is needed. These are not your funds to allocate freely. They belong to taxpayers, and the expectation should be so very clear right now. Prioritize, reduce where possible, and make the hard choices just like families do every day. If the money is not there, then go without. Figure it out. It's an election year this year coming up for midterms. And in your own personal budget, would you run your own house budget like this? If you don't have the money, you don't go on vacation. You can't replace the roof, okay? You have to set priorities. And it's not your money to spend, it's our money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thank you so much for everything tonight. This has been really, really helpful. And my name is Josh Daly. I am a resident of South Kingstown. I'm a taxpayer. Apparently that's an important thing for me to tell you. I'm a small business owner. Maybe that's something to tell you as well. And maybe you think the next thing out of my mouth is, don't take my damn tax dollars. Do take my tax dollars, please, right? I don't want to moralize this about you a lot. I have 3 little kids. I feel the pinch that everybody is talking about. I definitely do. I also care very much about their education. And so I'm not going to moralize a lot because what I've heard and appreciated is the desire to collaborate, to find a way to fund our schools, okay? That's what matters right now. And I want to, it sounds like we've got this incredibly difficult situation, which didn't happen overnight, but has sort of snowballed to this point, of the types of expenses that we have, right? The reductions in state aid, the increases that happen because increases like that happen. That's how budgets work. We've also got the other side of it, you know, the floor and the ceiling, right? The 4% max that you can do. I'd love to tell you, tax me more to the point where like you go over that. I know I can't even tell you that, right? So all I'm asking is that you continue to try to collaborate and figure out where are those places, what can be done, this is maybe not the thing you're supposed to say, creative accounting, not the wrong kind of creative accounting, the sort of how do you find the ways. But bottom line is, let's find the ways to give the schools what they need, which is not an unreasonable ask. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim O'Neill, Wakefield. I was disappointed with the presentation, particularly with no referrals to the bond, $150 million bond, and its principal and interest costs that are on the horizon. Put a few thoughts together here, so bear with me. I would like to keep the the employee reductions, the 613,000. You're talking 68,000 per. These are the folks that are usually down the chain, defenseless, etc. Why in the world do we need to get rid of them? I want to get rid of 16 administrators, probably coming close to an average of $150,000 each with the whole package. And in lieu of that, I'd like to hire 8 3 to 5 year experienced teachers in the classroom, real teachers. So that's one thought for savings. That'd be saving about $1.5 million. Secondly, I'd like to eliminate Social Security for everyone. Right now, those who have the state pension, it is a phenomenal pension account. No one in this town knows how fabulous it is. We don't need to fund Social Security for them. I think last I saw the numbers were $1.5 million to maybe it's $2 million. I have no idea where it is now because we never see those particular numbers. Lastly, I agree. I want to spend $1 million of unfunded monies on operations, but not any capital projects, because the last time I was in this room, we talked about $141 million now for the cost of the high school. Maybe another $1 million to tear down, demolish the entire Curtis Corner facility, but that might be $7-8 million less. So why in the world would we consider using any more unfunded monies for capital projects, if that's still the case? Fourth thing I was thinking about was we have a pilot tax, a very small amount we get for Champaign Heights. And without question, even when I was on the council, we know all those buildings have to be replaced and improved, no question about it. But when we have 100 kids there, and our average cost per student is about $25,000, that's $2.5 million. Is Rhode Island Housing going to cough this up? So I'm looking at this as another potential of 3 to 4 years down the road, on top of the bond issues, on top of everything else. A fifth thing that I'd like you to consider, and you've got to look at this, because towns who are ecotourism towns like ours, college towns, Providence, even Providence, the tiered taxation for residential commercial real estate, we need a new taxation category for that. It's not fair in a residential zone for someone paying $5,000 to live in a ranch home, and somebody builds a 5-10 unit place and collects $50,000, $60,000 and is still paying the same property tax. There's a lot of money here. You know this. The state is looking at it. Other cities and towns are looking at it. But it's money that would really help the schools and the town, which is most important. And lastly, Mr. President, the one thing I bring up time and time again here, I wish you would think about, you had this discussion about all those 230 kids that go to these out-of-district places. Think about it. If they all came back, and let's say we all had rooms in the same classrooms, it's a $5 million saving. $5 million saving. I've been talking about the scale for years here. Now, yes, you probably have to hire 5, 10 folks. $1.5 million versus $5 million plus. Economies of scale here. We have to pay each kid we send out of there $20,000, some places $21,000, the others. Full scale. When they come back, it's maybe one kid's $25,000, but the last kid is $1,000. There's no averaging. There's no economies of scale here. Very important. There's money on the table for us here if we start thinking how to do all that. I'd be happy to help you someday, but I've tried so much to get these other things through your mind. Think about the Social Security savings. There's such a great pension account already in place. Those folks can use the money, make their own investments. Their salaries aren't affected, and the taxpayers will save some money. So, thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Brett Harrington, Wakefield. A lot of the things on here have been said already, so I won't go over it. A couple of things I heard, though. When a teacher retires, do they continue to get health care benefits?
Depending on their duration of tenure in the district.
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so the new floor, if you added the 2.5 or the 3 million they really needed, once it's there, it's set as the floor. And as the contract says, you can't do anything after that per level fund. Katie talked about something I thought was important. And you guys talked about 12 years of watching, the state aid decrease, and decrease. Why wait so long? Why not just, haven't you been harping on our reps to look at this and say, hey, guys, regardless of what, they say we're all rich here, that's something that you definitely should have been going after. And again, we talk about, a lot of times it comes back to contractual. I've always said there's a lot of tools in the toolbox that prevent the taxpayers from getting any reduction. I've always said it'd be nice if, when it came to negotiation time, the taxpayers would have some representation at that table. There's a lot of things there. I've said it before, the Evergreen contract blows my mind. And for all of you people that don't know what that means you can't give them a lesser of a contract, correct me if I'm wrong, from last year. It has to be the same or better, and they have to agree to that. So where does the town go when they're looking at all these benefits? Do you guys know the student ratio to employee for South Kingstown? Is that something you know? No.
I would need to calculate it.
All right. Okay, so, we were talking about when I guess it was answered. I was thinking when you were saying about the kids going out of district and coming back, if it was 20,000 and then they came back, but I'm thinking it wouldn't go from, okay, you're paying the out of district or the charter school 20,000, they come back. Now does that change them to 25,000, the rate? What's our rate per a student now? You know what I mean? Like, what's the rate? Is it 25.5?
So if they came back and assuming it didn't cost, we're not creating a new class that they're coming into the existing classroom, it's a savings that would come back to the district.
Okay. So like I said earlier too, we've got 2,400 constituents and then 30,000 constituents. So both sides of the equation have to be looked at. I know at the other meetings when, before this, we were here tonight when it was brought up about the potential 2.5 increase after the town manager said, what was being proposed. The council quickly went to the defense of the school department and, cutting sports and such like that. So we need that as well from the council for the taxpayers as well. So, and the homestead exemption, like I said, I'm not looking for everybody to get something. I want the actual seniors that need it, and they have to prove they need it, because we know in this town we have a lot of seniors with a lot of money, so they don't need it. But if we were to give this increase, there's really no money to do anything to help those seniors. All right. Just looking at what's already been said. So basically, we have had less students, we've closed schools, we have a $150 million high school when it opens, maybe, 480 kids for 4 grades. My class alone in high school was 380 kids. So, anyway, that's it.
Thank you.
See, I've been away for so long, I don't know which button to push. Doral Beasley, that's me. In our council's annual goals, they set goals every year, and one of their goals every year is for this community to have 5-star schools. But in the many, many years that I've attended these school budget sessions, I've never once heard a single member of any school, of any town council ask the district administrators or the school committee why we don't have any 5-star schools. I bring that up because here I have in my hand South Kingstown's 2025 Accountability Summary Report from RIDE. We have 3 3-star schools and 2 4-star schools. And then you go down to the bottom and it shows you why our schools are not 5-star. And this, in the 2025 report, it all goes back to one thing. It's the achievement and our graduation rate at the high school of our students with disabilities. Now, the superintendent talked about what they've been doing to help those types of students, but we spend a ton of money in this town for students with disabilities. Special education, here it is, FY26 from RIDE. The town of South Kingstown, on average, spends $166,776 on every special education student. Now, we're only spending like $28,000 on a regular student. All right, so that's $166,000, happens to be second highest in the state after East Greenwich. So my question is, if we spend so much money per special education student, why do our students with disabilities, why aren't they doing better? Now, our teachers this year crested over $100,000 per salary, average salary, $140,000 when you add in the benefits. You say to yourself, okay, so now we have here, they were talking about why our out-of-district tuition costs so much. Okay, this year, our cost per student in the town of South Kingstown is $30,992, more or less, with the average daily membership, and when you adjust it for out-of-district tuition, it's $28,618. Now, if you give them the 2.5 extra million this coming year, that's going to go up to $31,722 overall, or $29,346 after you adjust it for out-of-district students. That's the 5th highest amount of per pupil cost in the state of Rhode Island. So we have the 5th highest per pupil cost per student. We have the 2nd highest cost for special education students. Why do we have 5-star schools? When are you going to ask the question? Are you ever going to ask the question? Now, I've come into this chamber many times over the last years and told you that you could adjust down the property tax transfer to the schools if you use on a per pupil basis. 3 years ago, it was $3.8 million. You could have reduced it. Last year, when I wasn't here, it was $2 million. And this year, if you stay with the $58 million transfer, it's got another $2 million. But never once have you reduced the numbers. And here's my last question. And it's the same question I asked last year. Your new high school is built for a capacity of 728 students, but when you go to the the rides tax, this is my last statement. When you go to the rides calculation chart about how many students you could put into a school by a per pupil square footage, our new high school could actually hold 786 students. I asked that question because 10 years from now, the NESDEC report says we're going to have 436 high school students in this town. So where are those 300 students coming from? It's only coming from one or two things. We're either going to have to close Broad Rock, bring 6, 7, and 8, or bring 7 and 8 to the high school, send 6 back to the elementary schools. You have a junior, senior high school like I was in 60 years ago, or you're going to have to regionalize with Narragansett. And
all right, we'll leave it there.
If Narragansett decides to go with North Kingstown, oh boy.
Okay, anyone else in the audience wish to speak? I invite you to just come on up. All right, seeing none. Any final thoughts? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Laura Urban, I live in Kingston. I have 2 kids in the district. A couple points that haven't been made. I know it's late. This town overwhelmingly voted down a school budget referendum in 2023 and approved a bond to build a new high school in 2024. There are a few people who show up repeatedly saying the same things at public comment, and there's probably some others who bend your ear around town, but I believe those votes are the best indicators of public sentiment about how we feel about education here. My daughter's 4th grade classroom at West Kingston has leaked and does not have heat in the building for multiple days this year. My son at Curtis Corner, Broad Rock, also leaks. It's not just Matunic. These buildings leak, and we refer to the rainy days by the number of buckets. So all these numbers, it's complex conversations. I don't disagree about cost-cutting measures or about the need for higher quality education. I think we all have some common ground on a lot of these things, but there's also realities that I think are not obvious to folks because they're not living it day by day. I'm not even living it. I just hear it from my kids when they come home. They love school, they work hard, they play hard, and they appreciate the privileges and challenges of our commitment to public education. We do this for equity because of how deeply our family values a system that educates all students regardless of their wealth, lottery status, or special needs. The state sees our community as increasingly wealthy and will reduce our share of state aid. And I can see why when I see folks buying 2nd or 3rd homes here, sometimes with all cash, overpaying. Okay, I know we hear from the majority who are struggling to get by. If we had adjusted for inflation since we started level funding, we'd be up $9 million, but I understand that we needed to cut and reduce, and we have done that. My son has gone through grades 1 through 6 during the past years of level funding, and COVID, and losses keep mounting. But I think we can get kids back. I've thought that for years. I've said as much. I've also brought up at least twice already, this will be the 3rd, we could have tiered property tax rates to tax the rich, but I'll say it again because it's worth repeating. I think that it's one town, it's one budget, regardless of how we talk about it. I can't stand that it's town versus schools. It's all the same thing. I've listened to all the other departments give their budgets. I've listened to this year over year, even though we both work full-time and raise 2 kids, and it's hard to keep track of. Our community wealth is high. Working together, we can deliver high-quality education among other services. And it's not just high because of incomes and property values. It's high in the character of our neighbors and in the beauty of our natural resources. This is a special place that I'm lucky to call home, and I just hope we can remain attractive across age and income levels in order to remain robust and vibrant going forward. And I just don't see how, if we can't show investment in the schools, that we'll do that. Thank you for your service.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else in the audience wish to speak? Come on up.
Libby.
Yes, I just speak to support the gentleman that said, that just agreed this is a really thorny problem, and I really appreciate the collaborative attitude that both sides, not that there are two sides, that both groups have had, but I think it's something that we need to work intensively on, as if you hadn't been having enough meetings over the last 2 weeks, but in order to get this done on time and to support the budget that the school has put forward. Thanks.
Can you just say your name?
Sorry.
We know who you are.
Yes, Elizabeth Nestor, Wakefield, born at South County Hospital, and here I am still.
You said something I thought was very profound online this week, is speaking as a retiree who supports the schools, and you referenced something to the effect that you intend to live here for the rest of your days. And although you don't have any kids in the school system, you were fortunate. I don't want to speak for you, but...
No, it's true that I don't have kids, but I've been very happy to support the education here. Since I'm going to be living here, I want the people who grow up, who are fortunate enough to be able to stay, also to be educated in the way that I was.
Mm-hmm. So. Thank you.
Thanks.
And we all know Libby because she's at every meeting. She never speaks. She sits in the corner. So
This is really...
I feel like she's the objective observer of all things.
Right.
So she sees us at all times, good and bad.
Okay, thank you, Libby. Anyone else in the audience wish to speak? I invite you to come on up. All right, seeing none. Any final thoughts? Council members, school committee members?
Are you going to talk about what are our next steps and what the process looks like? Great.
I just wanted to wish South Kingstown a happy St. Patrick's Day. Aaron Gobrog.
All right, I want to say thank you to the school administration. Very good presentation, very in-depth, very detailed. We engaged in some very good conversation. We appreciate it. School committee, we always appreciate working collaboratively. We're on the same page. We support schools. Schools are always number one in the community. As a SK graduate, I always say that schools are heart of the community, and it made me who I am today. So I'm a strong believer in that. We're going to do what we can to try to meet your requests to the extent we can. But preliminary budget adoption is scheduled for 7 p.m. tomorrow. So I encourage you all to stay tuned, stay informed, and at that point we'll engage in some deliberations and at least adopt a preliminary budget. We'll have several public hearings in April and then do a final budget adoption end of April, at which point we can take up any amendments or changes from the preliminary budget adoption that we adopt tomorrow night. With that said, any other thoughts?
Did you want to say something?